A significant aspect of religious traditions is a designation of sacred space. And these are specific places and geographical features which are designated holy either because of their importance in the history of a tradition or because of a theological perspective. For example, the river Ganges is the embodiment of the god Ganga, which makes the river itself a divine figure. Recent scholarship on sacred space builds on the ideas of Mircea Eliade, whose book The Sacred and the Profane explores multiple aspects of the process by which ordinary, or profane, space is turned into holy, or sacred, space. This follows two paths. One, the hierophonic, which is a direct earthly manifestation of a deity in a specific place, or two, theophanic, the experience of an interaction between a human and a deity, and the human which then spreads the message that the deity gives them. So this could be either, again, one, hierophonic, the direct earthly manifestation of a deity, like, for example, the river Ganges, and two, theophonic, the experience of an interaction between a human and a deity. This could be the cave where the Prophet Muhammad, first received the revelation from the angel Gabriel. The natural world is part, therefore, in this idea of the deity or deities which created it. This includes a wide variety of beliefs about the relationship between the divine and the creation. Religion is often seen as a bridge between the known and unknown realms, which are separated into gates of time. This could be rites of passage, such as death or baptism, or passages into different times in life, and gates of space. And these are holy places. These are the sacred places, churches, meeting houses, what have you. So some holy spaces bridge the known and unknown worlds, the known being the world we can see around us, and the unknown being the world that is spiritual, that we can't often see. And these places, by creating this bridge between the known and the unknown, create gates to a spiritual realm within this material world. Many of these holy spaces have complex rituals connected to the ways that people can access them, and thus bring time and space together in one holy place. The most tangible aspect of this idea of religious ecology is therefore the veneration of nature, where specific areas are assumed holy and are thus granted greater respect. This can be seen across the history of human religious expression, both in traditions which label the earth as itself divine, leading to the explicit labeling of specific areas as divine mountains and such, and in traditions which separated the creation from the divine, but still designated certain areas as thin places where humans were physically closer to these unknown divine realms. There is no one generally accepted framework for defining, therefore, what makes a place holy or sacred. They might not even be specific places, such as the sense of the Torah and the interpretive tradition which grew around it as a mobile sacred space, which traveled with Jews wherever they were forced to migrate across time. Now, the classification of sacred spaces falls into three different areas. One would be mystico-religious sites. These are the most sacred sites, where the divine is in direct contact with humanity, and which are considered holy for all of humanity. A second would be homelands. There's a second level of sacredness, sites which represent the roots of individuals and peoples, but are only sacred to believers themselves and not to anyone outside of the tradition. And three, historical sacred sites. There's a third level, sites which are only considered sacred because of events which occurred there. Now, pilgrimages most often occur at mystical religious sites and historical sacred sites. Various aspects go into the selection of a sacred spot, But once the space is considered sacred by a tradition, it rarely loses that sacred status. Many sites are related to events which occurred there, to significant figures in a religious tradition as well. But others are considered holy or sacred either because the new tradition adopts sacred places from earlier religious traditions, as what happened in most of Europe, where you had previous sacred places that were sacred to traditions which existed before Christianity arrived, and Christianity acknowledged the sacredness or the different nature of these places, and thus brought them into Christianity as sacred places. Now, the vast majority of sacred places become areas of conflict between the intersection of sacredness in a tradition, the devotee's interest in visiting these sites, and the complex elements of practical economic and development concerns and the impact of local political realities. So, in other words, majority of these places become places of conflict because of the fact that people want to go there, so they have to have a whole infrastructure connected to people actually visiting there. But you don't want to overwhelm the site and, in some sense, lose what is sacred about it by having too many people visit at one time. Hindu religious sites represent a particularly notable case study of the challenges that are inherent in this complex intersection. Many religious traditions placed a significant value on aligning their worship and ritual sites also along compass orientations, which had special value for their tradition, such as orienting mosques towards the direction of Mecca, cosmic events which held importance, Mayan sites, which were often aligned according to astronomical positions, or even the placement of important geographical features. So, for example, the importance of rivers and bodies of water in the placement of Hindu sacred sites. Now, a pilgrimage is at core a journey. It is a journey to a shrine or other sacred place by pilgrims, who are people who undertake this journey to a sacred place as an act of religious devotion. Pilgrimages often involve large numbers of people traveling for great distances, often to participate in specific religious ritual. Now, these exist in both ethnic traditions and universal traditions. Ethnic are religions which grant their adherents a specific ethnicity or common peoplehood. So, for example, Judaism. And universalizing are religions which seek to expand their numbers through missionary activity and spreading the core messages of their religion to others. This would include Buddhism, Christianity, and Islam. Pilgrimage sites come in all shapes, sizes, and levels of importance for the religious tradition they are a part of. Some are considered obligatory for all members to visit, whereas others are simply seen as of great value and benefit for adherents to come and visit. They can be sites of miracles, and thus become sites where pilgrims seek to engage in the sacredness of the initial miraculous event, which is believed to still linger there, or are the main administrative centers of a tradition, such as Rome for Christianity or Varanasi for Hinduism. These become tourist centers, often visited by pilgrims from a variety of religious traditions, not only the main tradition of that site. Now, the pilgrimage journey is itself seen as vital to the entire experience, as vital as the destination itself, with important lessons about enduring hardship, gaining humility, and a recognition of the varieties of people within the tradition that are all seen as valuable. And these are lessons that are valuable lessons, necessary lessons that are taught by the pilgrimage experience. One of the core aspects of pilgrimage is the circulation of people, the interaction between pilgrims, the geographical spaces they travel through on their way to the site, their interactions with the site itself, and the ways these newly transformed pilgrims impact their home communities when they return. Now, the rest of this chapter explores how all of these dynamics of sacred space and pilgrimage play out in the Buddhist, Muslim, Hindu, and Christian traditions across the world. Something you should particularly note is the ways that you can discern the core beliefs and elements of practice from each tradition by the way that they each approach sacred space and its designation, and the pilgrim experience itself.